What if I told you that you're not just a man trying to survive, but a divine being who's already immortal? Sounds crazy, right? That's because we've been lied to since birth. You were trained to believe that your power ends where your skin does, that death is the final chapter, and fear is just part of being human. But what if all of that is false? What if fear is the only thing standing between you and your true nature, limitless, eternal, untouchable? Most men are walking around as if they're cursed by time, shrinking from their greatness because the illusion of fear feels so real. And here's the shocking truth: the ego wants it that way. It uses fear to trap you in a life that's way smaller than the one you were born to live. But once you awaken to your immortal consciousness, the game changes. You stop reacting, you start creating. This isn't theory, it's your forgotten truth, and in this video you'll finally remember it. If you've ever felt like there's something more inside you, something powerful, sacred, and waiting to break free, you're right. And by the end of this, you'll know exactly how to live like the divine force you really are. Let's begin. 1. The God within. Your true nature beyond the body. Most people go through life thinking they're just flesh and bones, like their body is the beginning and end of who they are. But deep down, there's a part of them that knows that's not the full story. That quiet whisper in moments of stillness. That's the eternal presence behind the mind. It's the part that existed before this body and will continue long after. Recognizing this divine nature doesn't require religious rituals. It simply takes a moment of real awareness, like looking at your own thoughts without identifying with them. Now, imagine walking into a room and knowing, really knowing, that you're not just a man, but a force that can't be measured by age, money, or physical strength. That's not some fantasy, it's a forgotten truth. You are God expressing himself through a human experience, and the body is just your temporary vehicle. Meditation helps, but so does something as simple as sitting in silence and observing the breath without judgment. That's when the illusion starts to crack. The challenge is that we've been conditioned to believe we're small, breakable, and constantly under threat. But if your true self is immortal, then what exactly are you afraid of losing? This is where the illusion of fear begins. It feeds off this false idea of being only human. Even quantum physics now flirts with the idea that consciousness isn't born from the body, but the other way around. Think about that for a second. What if death isn't the end, but a transition? Men especially are taught to man up, be strong, and stay in control. But real power isn't about muscle or domination. It's about remembering your true origin. That inner power doesn't shout, it doesn't compete. It simply is. And once you touch that space, even for a moment, you realize you've been walking around in a costume. The mask of the mind begins to slip. And that's when fear comes knocking, trying to pull you back into the illusion. 2. How fear creates the illusion of separation. Fear is like fog. It settles over the mind and makes everything appear divided, distant, and disconnected. It tells you you're on your own, that the world is against you, and that you're just a fragile body trying to survive. But none of that is actually true. Fear isn't the enemy, it's the signal. It points directly to where you've forgotten your divine nature. The moment you identify with fear, you shrink yourself into a role you were never meant to play. Look at how fear works in everyday life. You hesitate to speak your truth because you're afraid of rejection. You hold back from pursuing your dreams because you fear failure. That's not your true self acting. It's your conditioned mind running on outdated programs. These programs were designed to protect the body, not to liberate the soul. And here's the twist. Every time you choose fear, you reinforce the illusion that you're separate from everything, including God. This illusion of separation is what keeps people stuck. It's why they chase validation, cling to material things, and numb themselves with distraction. They don't realize they're running from their own light, but you can reverse it. Instead of resisting fear, face it. Ask yourself, What part of me believes I'm not safe? That simple question creates a gap between you and the emotion. And in that gap, you'll begin to remember who you are. When a man learns to observe fear without letting it dictate his actions, everything changes. He stops being a puppet and becomes a creator. That's spiritual awakening in motion, not fireworks, not angels descending, but clarity in the middle of chaos. And clarity reveals something wild. Fear was never real to begin with. It was just a lens, a trick of the mind. And when that lens is lifted, you begin to see what was always right in front of you: eternity. 3. The lie of death and the truth of eternal life. Death is the biggest bluff this world has ever sold. From the moment you're born, you're taught to fear the end, as if your existence is a ticking clock that will one day hit zero. But here's the truth. Most never question. What if there is no end? What if the thing you think of as you has never actually faced death and never will? Your body may expire, but your awareness, that silent presence behind your eyes, isn't going anywhere. That's immortality, not fantasy, but reality unmasked. You don't need a near-death experience to understand this. Just pay attention to dreams. Every night the body sleeps, but you continue to exist in some other state, experiencing, reacting, being. Where do you go when the mind shuts off? That mystery points to the fact that life is not confined to the physical. And the fear illusion around death only has power because we've been hypnotized into thinking this physical world is all there is. It's not. It's just one room in a mansion you've barely explored. This lie of death keeps you playing small. Why chase your calling if you think everything ends anyway? Why love deeply if you fear losing what you love? But once you know you're eternal, you play the game differently. You take bold steps. You stop delaying your joy. You live not to survive, but to expand. And you stop mistaking survival for purpose. That's when something shifts. You realize you're not walking toward the end. You're walking through layers of awakening. Look around. This fear of death is everywhere, in how people age, in how they spend their time, in how they cling to youth. But the truth of eternal life isn't something you argue. It's something you feel. Sit in silence, watch a sunset, hold someone's hand without distraction. In those moments, you're not dying, you're remembering. You're living from that timeless space, the same one you came from and will return to. But the ego hates that truth, because if there's no death, there's nothing to fear and nothing to control. 4. Why the ego uses fear to keep you small. The ego isn't evil, it's just scared. It's that voice in your head constantly calculating, comparing, and preparing for danger. It thinks its job is to keep you alive, but what it's really doing is keeping you small. It whispers things like, "You're not good enough. What if they laugh at you?" and play it safe. These aren't truths, they're defense mechanisms. And guess what they're defending? The illusion of control. The ego uses fear as a shield because it's terrified of your spiritual awakening. Here's the kicker. The more powerful you become, the louder the ego screams. It doesn't want you to remember your divine nature, because if you did, the game would be over. You'd no longer be driven by insecurity, people-pleasing, or perfectionism. You'd start making bold moves, trusting your gut, and stepping into your immortality. And the ego? It wouldn't know what to do with that kind of freedom, so it throws fear in your face and hopes you'll back down. But there's a trick to disarming the ego. Don't fight it. Don't argue with it. Just notice it. Imagine you're watching a scared child throwing a tantrum. You wouldn't yell back. You'd stay calm, grounded, maybe even laugh a little. That's how you treat the ego. You see it, you thank it for trying to protect you, and you move forward anyway. That simple act of awareness shatters the fear illusion and begins to rewire your entire life from the inside out. Real-life example. Think of someone like Jim Carrey. He talks openly about realizing he wasn't his persona, his money, or even his face. That awareness dismantled the ego's grip on his life. You don't need to be famous to do the same. Start journaling your fears. Notice the patterns. Bring presence to those moments when fear speaks. You'll begin to see that fear isn't the truth. It's just the ego trying to hold on to an identity that's already crumbling. And beyond that crumbling, something immortal is waiting to wake up. 5. Awakening to your immortal consciousness. Awakening isn't about becoming something new. It's about remembering what you've always been. Most men walk around in a fog, not because they're asleep, but because they've forgotten how to look within. Immortal consciousness isn't some abstract idea for monks on a mountain. It's the awareness you're using right now to read this. It's the you behind the thoughts, behind the emotions, the one that watches without judgment. And when that part of you wakes up, life never looks the same again. You begin to realize that you're not reacting, you're choosing, that every moment is a chance to return to presence instead of being pulled by fear. Suddenly, the things that used to shake you, criticism, failure, uncertainty, lose their power. Why? Because you're anchored in something eternal. That's the gift of spiritual awakening, clarity in the chaos. You're still living in the world, but you're no longer of it. You're operating from your divine nature, not your wounded ego. Let's make it practical. Ever been in traffic and felt the urge to scream? That's the ego. But if you pause and observe that feeling instead of reacting, you're in your immortal consciousness. Same thing happens when someone insults you and you don't bite back, because you know their words can't touch the real you. These aren't small wins. These are cracks in the illusion. And every crack lets more light in. Over time, that light becomes your natural state, not the exception. This is when things start to get exciting. You begin to notice synchronicities, signs, patterns, moments of deep connection that seem too perfect to be random. You start to sense that life isn't just happening to you, it's happening for you. That awareness alone begins to reshape your choices. You stop chasing and start aligning, and in that alignment, your energy changes. And when your energy shifts, your reality follows. But to stay in that place, you'll need more than just a moment of clarity. You'll need a practice. 6. How to transcend fear through awareness and presence. Transcending fear isn't about being fearless, it's about being aware of fear without letting it run the show. Awareness is your superpower. When you notice fear rising and choose not to react, you've already taken back control. That presence, that moment of stillness between the trigger and the response, is where transformation happens. And guess what? That space is always available. It just gets buried under noise, distractions, and old habits. Learning to pause is the first real step toward mastery. Start with something simple. Set a reminder on your phone 3 times a day to stop and take 3 deep breaths. During those breaths, ask yourself, what am I feeling right now? Not what you should feel, what you actually feel. That little check-in brings you back to presence. The more you do it, the more you begin to see fear not as an enemy, but as a signal that you've momentarily forgotten your divine nature. That's when you gently return to truth. Presence doesn't mean being passive. It means being deeply engaged with what is, without being dragged around by it. Think about someone like Eckhart Tolle. His entire teaching is about stillness, not because life is calm, but because you can be calm in the storm. That's real power. You can still hustle, build, lead, love, but from a grounded place, not a desperate one. Fear will still show up, but now you'll meet it with a smile, not a flinch. Want to deepen this? Try practices like conscious walking, body scans, or even just watching your thoughts for 10 minutes a day without judging them. These small, consistent acts of presence rewire your nervous system and train your mind to see fear for what it is, a ghost. A leftover program from a past you're no longer living in. And once you stop feeding it your attention, it loses its grip. That's when your spiritual awakening moves from concept to lifestyle. And that lifestyle changes everything. 7. Living as a divine being without limitations. Living as a divine being doesn't mean walking around in robes, floating on clouds, or talking in riddles. It means showing up fully, boldly, and unapologetically as who you truly are, immortal, powerful, and present. It means choosing to lead your life from truth, not trauma, from love, not lack. You stop playing small because you know there's nothing small about you, and that shift isn't just spiritual, it's practical. It affects your money, your health, your relationships, your decisions. Picture a man who wakes up and decides that he's done living in fear. He starts his day not with worry, but with intention. He blesses his coffee, sets clear goals, speaks kindly to himself. That's not woo-woo. That's rewiring. That's what happens when you start operating from your divine nature. You become magnetic. People feel your peace. Opportunities open. And not because the universe favors you, but because you've aligned with it. You're no longer blocking your blessings with fear illusion. This kind of living requires courage, not the loud, flashy kind, but the quiet, relentless kind. The courage to say no to what drains you, yes to what expands you, and maybe to the things you're still learning about. You don't need all the answers. You just need to trust the path as it unfolds. And when challenges come, and they will, you don't collapse. You expand. You remember you're not just navigating life, you're creating it. That's immortality in motion. And maybe the best part? You don't need to wait for some perfect moment to start. You can begin now, right now. Choose to act like the divine being you are. Speak life into your ideas. Protect your peace. Stand tall even when your knees shake. That's the new standard. And once you've tasted life without the limitations of fear and ego, you won't want to go back. Because you'll know that this freedom, this clarity, is who you were meant to be all along. If you want to elevate your vibrations and manifest with more ease, I have prepared something special for you. Click the link in the first pinned comment and join us in the journey of awakening your inner mage.